News is interrupting your programming to bring you a quick election update. We are closely following the propositions as they start to roll in. Travis County has now given us some numbers on Proposition Q. This is the proposition that would increase the city's property tax rate by about 20%. City leaders say to pay for essential services. With those early Travis County numbers in, you can see that the prop is still failing, with 67% of voters voting against it and 33% voting for that proposition. By the way, expected to raise the typical homeowner's property taxes by about $300 a year if it passes. But as of now, strong opposition to that proposition. We want to talk to you about some of those statewide propositions from all across the state of Texas. People weighing in on 17 amendments to the state constitution. Let's hit the big ones first, right? The ones that we know so many people are watching. Prop 13 would increase the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000. You can see overwhelmingly that's passing at nearly 82%, with 54% of precincts across the state of Texas reporting. Prop 11 similarly would increase the homestead exemption for the elderly and disabled. They get an additional property tax exemption on top of the property tax exemption that everyone gets. Right now it's $10,000. If this passes, which it is passing right now, it increases to $60,000. Prop 4 is the big state water fund, putting $1 billion into the water fund every year for 20 years. You can see that it is getting widespread support at 71%. Again, 54% of precincts reporting. Prop 3 is certainly one of the more controversial propositions. It's about bail reform, allowing judges to deny bail to people accused of 9 violent crimes across the state of Texas. And you can see right now it is passing at 63.4%. There is opposition to this in Travis County. Travis County voters, in terms of early voting, not supporting this one, but overall, this is passing right now with 54% of the precincts reporting in the state. All right, we're going to return you to your regularly scheduled programming on TV. But if you want to know more about these propositions and what's passing, what's failing, what the numbers are, head on over to KVUE Plus right now. All right, Ashley Goudeau back with you here on KVUE Plus as we're going to continue. Now that we are off of TV, we can slow down a little bit and really deep dive into some of these numbers that we're getting on these propositions. So Prop 1, we're talking about the statewide propositions that would amend the Texas Constitution. This would provide funding for the Texas State Technical College system. That is a college system that prepares students for a variety of careers with technical backgrounds and technical specialties. They have campuses all over the state of Texas, particularly in rural counties. There's even a campus here in Williamson County. But this is a college system that has not had solid state funding. And you've heard from state lawmakers, from leaders of that college system, from business owners say that it's hard for that college system to grow without a set funding dollars to kind of know what they're getting and when they're getting it. So this would put some money into the system. It's passing right now. 54% of precincts reporting. We got about 69% support for this, including support in our Central Texas area. If we go to Prop 2, this would be a ban on capital gains. And capital gains taxes are taxes that you would pay for selling an asset such as a stock. Texas does not currently tax capital gains, but this would put it in the Constitution that the legislature may not tax capital gains, and you can see that this is passing overwhelmingly 67.2%. If we zoom in locally, though, there is opposition to this in Travis County. Interestingly enough, the Travis County Democratic Party opposed this particular proposition. The thought there being that they see it as a tool in the toolbox. They don't want to say that the legislature can't ever put a tax on capital gains, because you never know what may happen down the line in terms of the state's economy. And that message that they got out clearly resonated with voters, at least with early voters. We got 53% reporting, and it failed in Travis County. But you can see overall, when we zoom back out, overall state of Texas, this one has passed, or is passing, excuse me. Proposition 3 is another one where voters in Travis County disagree with the rest of the state. So this one passing right now, this would allow judges to deny bail for 9 violent crimes. We're talking murder, aggravated assault that includes or causes serious bodily injury, continuous trafficking of persons, those very serious violent crimes. Lawmakers, particularly those in the Senate who have passed this time and time again, say that they have seen time after time someone who is charged with a violent crime, post bond, get out on bond, and then go on to commit another violent crime. They say it is a cycle that the state needs to address, that they want judges to address, and so this allowed judges to deny bail. You can see that overwhelmingly green, which means passage across the state of Texas. But if we zoom into our area in Travis County, voters saying no, a little split on this, but nearly 60-40% split on this particular bond. All right, let's move on to Prop 4. This is one that so many people can get behind. This is about the state water fund. So basically, once the state of Texas brings in $46.5 billion in sales tax revenue, the next $1 billion would go into a fund for water projects, fixing infrastructure, finding new sources of water in the state of Texas. This would be the case for 20 years. So $1 billion a year for 20 years. This is to deal with the state's ongoing water crisis. We have cities in the state of Texas that are anticipated to run out of water by the year 2030. And so this is a sorely needed project. You can see overwhelming support all across the state of Texas, with 71% of voters saying yes to funding this proposition. Prop 5 deals with an animal feed tax exemption. As of right now in the state of Texas, it does not, farmers and ranchers do not pay taxes to grow animal feed. When you purchase animal feed, you do not pay taxes on it. But when it is being stored, when it is in inventory, then businesses do have to pay taxes on that animal feed. And so this would eliminate that, make animal feed tax-free all across the board. The thought is that this would help farmers and ranchers, give them a little break, make it a bit more affordable in a time when food prices are going up and everything is going up. The cost of feed is going up, that this would drive prices down a bit and help farmers out. That's the thought process behind that. Zooming in locally, you can see in Travis County, people not necessarily a fan of this particular proposition. But if we zoom back out and look at the totality of Texas, it's passing 65 to 34%. Prop 6 would ban taxes on securities. So basically taxes on financial transactions. This is particularly important as Texas looks to get Wall Street, the Texas Stock Exchange, which is supposed to come to Dallas, which is already in the works. But there is concern about people having to pay every time they make a financial move, having to pay taxes. Texas does not currently have a tax on securities. No one in the legislature is talking about putting a tax on that, similar to Prop 2, talking about capital gains. But again, this would just say we as a state are not going to do that. We're going to put it in the Constitution. And again, obviously locally, voters are saying no. In Travis County, 65 to 34%. Also in Hays County, they're saying no, 53% to 46%. But I think what's really interesting, Wall Street would be located in Dallas, and the voters in Dallas also not necessarily a fan of this. So certainly interesting to look at that there. But overall, the message from lawmakers as they have spoke about this, the need to ban this sort of tax, you can see that their message is resonating. Moving on to Prop 7, this would be a tax exemption for the surviving spouses of a select group of veterans who have died. Right now in the state of Texas, veterans who are 100% disabled get full tax exemptions. They do not have to pay property taxes to their school districts. That is what the state controls. And when that veteran dies, that tax exemption passes on to their surviving spouse as long as they are 100% disabled. But we have a group of veterans who were exposed to burn pits, exposed to Agent Orange. And at the time, the federal government was not recognizing that the conditions that they got as a result of that exposure to being 100% disabled. The federal government is doing its part to rectify that. The state of Texas wants to do its part to do right by the spouses of those veterans and give them that tax exemption, pass it on to them as well. And so you can see that that is resonating with Texas voters, 87% for, just 12% against, with 55% reporting. Prop 8 would be a ban on death taxes, the taxes that someone would pay after you die and pass your property, your land, things on to your children, your grandchildren. This would prevent the state of Texas from putting a tax on those death estates. The thought process is that when someone was alive, they already paid taxes on this property, on this homestead. They shouldn't have to pay taxes in death as well. Their family shouldn't. And you can see that Texans are agreeing with that, 73%, nearly 74% to 26%. Moving on to Proposition 9. This would really impact business owners across the state of Texas. So right now, any personal property that business owners use in the commission of their business is subject to taxes. Think about computers, think about manufacturing equipment, the cars, phones, things of that nature. The state of Texas right now gives business owners a tax exemption of roughly it's $2,500. That's all the exemption that they get. This would increase that exemption to $125,000. Now you can see that there's opposition in Travis County to this right now. 57%, nearly 58% of voters rejecting this proposition. And some of that rejection comes from the idea that, again, if you take tax revenue out of the base, that's less money for schools, that's less money for, other services that schools need, and that money has to come from somewhere. So the Travis County Democratic Party was against this proposition as well, and you can see that their message really resonated with voters in the Austin area. Moving on to Prop 10, this would be a property tax exemption for someone whose home is completely destroyed by a fire. If you're a homeowner, you know those property appraisals are coming out in January, and that is it. So if you get a property appraisal in January and something awful happens to your house and it is burned down in February, there is right now no way for you to go back and have your property reappraised or to pay less. Your property tax bill remains the same. This would change that, right? This would create a process where you could get a new appraisal of your property. It would prorate that property tax bill. We'll come up with a mechanism for that. It's really what most people see as common sense legislation, and you can see overwhelming support. We've got 90% support across the state of Texas. It has overwhelmingly passed in every county that we're getting numbers from in the state of Texas as of right now. Prop 11 would increase the property tax exemption for the elderly, that's Texans who are 65 and older, and the disabled, from $10,000 to $60,000. So a significant increase for our seniors to offer them some property tax relief from their school taxes. And the schools wouldn't lose any money. The state of Texas would put more money in to make up for the difference. There is a hold harmless, that's called a hold harmless clause, if this passes. And you can see right now overwhelming support for this proposition. Prop 12 is an interesting proposition. So this deals with the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. This is the commission that you would make a complaint to if you had an issue with the judge. This is really who oversees judges. And right now there are 13 members of that commission. Some are appointed by the state bar, some appointed by the governor, some appointed by the the Texas Supreme Court. We're talking about Texas here. And so if under this proposition, the state bar would no longer appoint 3 members to the commission, and the governor would get to appoint 7 members of the commission. The Texas Supreme Court would appoint the other members of the commission. There's concern that this would politicize the commission, and that the commission could then go after judges that do not make rulings that the governor agrees with or in his favor. So there is some concern among some people, particularly those Travis County Democrats who overwhelmingly came out against this. They did not endorse this proposition. Their message resonated with Travis County voters, but all across the rest of the state, you can see largely people agree with this. 55% of precincts reporting. Prop 13 is the big one that so many people are paying attention to, watching and getting out and voting on. This would increase the homestead exemption for Texas homeowners from $100,000 to $140,000. Again, there's a hold harmless cause. So the state of Texas will put in more money so that school districts would not lose that money. And so you can see overwhelming support for this. If Prop 13 passes and Prop 11 passes, so that's the additional money off of the homestead exemption for the seniors and disabled. Seniors and disabled Texans would get a $200,000 property tax exemption, which means the supermajority of older Texans and disabled Texans in the state will not be paying school taxes. That is what people see as real tax reform that can really help a lot of people. And again, the schools would still get money from the state. So widespread support for that. Prop 14 would create DPRIT, or the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. And this would be similar to CPRIT, Texas's Cancer Research Institute. Right now, Texas has the third largest number of dementia patients in the country, and the number of Texans who are expected to get older is set to significantly increase by 2030. And so because the numbers are trending toward more people being diagnosed with dementia in its varying stages earlier, the state of Texas wants to put some money into a prevention and research institute. How much money? We're talking $3 billion over 10 years. That money would largely be used to fund grants and things of that nature, but also to attract top talent to Texas to come in, research, figure out what we can be doing differently as a state to try to curb these numbers. So you can see widespread support for that at 68% to 31%. Moving on to Prop 15. 15, 16, 17 are the interesting props that are a little bit more controversial. You will see some red on these. So right now, Prop 15 is about parental rights, and this would basically take all of the judgments that have been made regarding how parents and the role parents play in raising their children and put it in statute into the Texas Constitution. Those things are already really decided in the court of law, and so they just want to say what parents have the right to do and not do. You see, when we go to Austin, we hit this Travis County, that this proposition is currently at 52% reporting failing, right? 57% to 43%. You may be wondering, why is that? Well, there are some legal minds who say this could impact everything from what's taught in public schools to the intervention a child can receive if they're being abused or neglected, that there's a lot of concerns that some people have. You have other legal minds who say, hey, no, what this is actually going to do is take all of the rules that have already been decided and make it very clear so that a jurisdiction or a judge or a courtroom doesn't have to say something different. But that's the concern there. Again, overall, though, you're seeing that it has widespread support. Prop 16 would put it in the Texas Constitution that you must be a U.S. citizen to vote. I know you're thinking, Ashley, you already have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, and you're right. In the state of Texas, you have to be registered to vote, and in order to register, you have to be a U.S. citizen. But the Texas Constitution does not explicitly say that you have to be a citizen in order to vote. This would change that. This would put it into the Texas Constitution that only U.S. citizens can vote in the state. You can see it's getting widespread support at 74%. But again, Travis County, those early voting numbers, you can see 54% of voters saying this is unnecessary, this is already the law, we do not need to change the Constitution to put that in there. And finally, we have Prop 17, and this proposition would offer some tax breaks for property owners who allow the state to put border security infrastructure on their land. So the state of Texas is in the process of building a border wall along the Texas-Mexico border. What happens is when the state goes in and they build a road to do this, or they put up wall, or they do some sort of other infrastructure improvement, the property owners have been seeing their property taxes go, the property tax bills increase, obviously, because the land is seen as more valuable. Lawmakers say that's not exactly fair to them, and it would discourage them from participating in the border wall program. So they want to exempt the improvement that is made to the property. The property still gets appraised. The property, you still have to pay taxes on the property, but the improvement, the road, the wall, things of that nature that are added, the property owner would not have to pay taxes on those improvements. You can see it's getting widespread support, particularly in these border communities. Folks are supporting, this. But when we zoom in locally, again, this was one of those propositions that the Travis County Democrats opposed. And so in Travis County, if I can get it to work there you go. It is failing 66% to 33%. Hays County voters also not necessarily a fan of this one. A little tighter though, right? 51% to 48% on that. We do want to talk about a big race that is not happening in our area, but is coming out of Houston, and that is for Congressional District 18. This is an important one to watch because U.S. Representative Sylvester Turner, he was formerly the mayor of Houston, he was formerly a state representative, was elected to that position last November. He died in March, and it has been 8 months with no representation in Congress for the people who live in this part of Texas. The governor had not called a special election. He decided to call the special election to coincide with the November election. There are an astounding 16 candidates. I can just go on and on scrolling, running for this particular seat, including a very familiar name, George Foreman's son, George Foreman. But this is most assuredly going to go into a runoff. Looking at right now, we're still at 51% reporting in Houston, but Christian Manifian, former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards are sitting in the lead. State Representative Jolanda Jones coming in third place right there. All right, let's talk about some more local races that we have. In Pflugerville, we have a mayoral race, and as of right now, with those early voting totals coming in, Doug Wise is in the lead at 47% to Pat McCord's 37%. This appears early on that we might be headed to a runoff. Moving on to the city of Kyle, there's also a mayoral race there. Robert Rizzo in the lead at 43% to Yvonne Flores-Kell at 34%. Let's talk about some school bonds that are on the election. Manor ISD voters there weighing in on Prop A. This is roughly $359.5 million in bonds for new schools. We're getting some early voting numbers in, and 57% of voters against this proposition. Prop B also failing in Manor ISD right now. This is $8.5 million for technology for the campuses across the district, failing 56% to 44% as of right now. And finally, Prop C in the Manor ISD, which is $16.5 million for the Performing Arts and Performing Arts Center. That bond also voters not necessarily supporting spending more money right now. It's a different story in Taylor ISD. Prop A is $147 million for facilities and new school buses. That getting support right now, 64% to 36%. Moving on to Prop B in Taylor, this would be a property tax rate increase, but district leaders say it would not increase the tax bill thanks to some debt that has been paid off. And you can see that message resonating with voters who are 58% for it to 42% against it. Moving on to Liberty Hill ISD Prop A. This is a property tax rate increase as well. Same story, right? We're not necessarily seeing large increases in property tax bills because of some debt savings. And 56% of voters there are backing Prop A in Liberty Hill ISD. Moving on to Hays CISD, where they are also proposing a property tax rate. This not going over so well with voters. We've just got 5% reporting right now, but it's a 60-40 split against increasing the property tax rate in Hays CISD. All right, Austin's Prop Q. We want to give you one more look at this as we are now getting early voting numbers in from Travis County and still Prop Q at this moment failing 67% to 33%. And our Daniel Perot is live at a watch party with a crowd who is against Prop Q. Daniel, they're pretty happy over there.
Yeah, Ashley, it's fair to say there's a lot of excitement and jubilation here at Bolden Acres as the group of opponents to Prop Q who are here celebrate the results that have come in so far. Just a couple minutes ago, some of the leaders of this movement over the last couple weeks came up and spoke, and they did declare victory. It's still early. There's still a lot of votes out there, but they say because of the margin that they've seen so far with just how much they are winning by, that they believe this is over and Prop Q will be defeated. They call this a historic night and say it is a major win for Austin taxpayers because they sent a very clear message to city leaders and City Hall that enough is enough. The crowd has actually started to thin out a little bit in just the last couple of minutes. Now that the leaders got up here and spoke, people have started to go their separate ways, go off and go home. So there are fewer and fewer people here. You can see they are watching the votes as they come in real time. They have got the Travis County Clerk's website up there, keeping a very close eye on the tally here. But it is certainly a jubilant mood. They've been vocal in their opposition to it, pointing out that, they expected to win tonight. They were very confident coming in, but I'm not sure they expected to win by quite this margin. It is just being ahead by right now more than a 2-to-1 margin. Attorney Adam Lowy, who's been very vocal in his opposition to Prop Q, spoke about that just a couple minutes ago.
And let me make very clear, this was a blowout victory. 30-plus points. We had a broad bipartisan coalition that stood up and said, no, we are not standing up for this. And in the words of Matt, enough is enough.
So while they are celebrating this victory tonight and sort of savoring it, they're also making clear that this is not the end and this is just a first step. Matt McCoyak, one of the co-chairs of Save Austin Now, said that the real work starts tomorrow, and they're now calling for a full forensic audit to be done of the city of Austin and its budget as they move forward. And the city now has to figure out a different way to deal with this massive $33 million budget deficit that it is dealing with. But it's very clear, Ashley, a resounding message sent to the city tonight from Austin taxpayers and Austin voters.
Daniel, thank you. As you mentioned, a tough pill to swallow for folks who were supporting Prop Q. They're also having a watch party tonight. KVUE's Malia Masamoto is there. And Malia, they've said that they needed this money to pay for essential services. Talk to us about the mood out there. They were hopeful when we talked to you earlier. Is that still the case?
Ashley, the mood has definitely shifted since we last talked. A lot of people have actually already started to head out. We did just hear from a group of them kind of expressing their disappointment over these initial results so far. Obviously, we know the against Prop Q is the leading as of right now, so they are disappointed to hear that as that's coming in, and they're really worried about what this means for what jobs could be on the chopping block because of this, related to all those essential services that the city really needs. It's a lot of programs and jobs that were tied to Prop Q. Well, they said conversations are going to begin tomorrow with City Council to make sure that this is a fair process moving forward and that, all these citizens are really getting the help and the essential services they need. Obviously, we know the city is dealing with a budget deficit. I spoke with Councilmember Ryan Alter about this, who said they've been cutting every single thing they really can to make this budget more reasonable here. But this was something that they really needed to help with that and to help fund these services, things like libraries, addressing homelessness, affordable housing, just a lot of different areas around the city. There was going to be $35.5 million from Prop Q going towards addressing homelessness and affordable housing. If Prop Q passes, those dollars would be going there. So obviously, seeing these early numbers, they're upset to see that is possibly something that won't be happening. Councilmember Ryan Alter also told me something that they want to do as a city is try to be more transparent with explaining to residents what the money is getting spent on and how that affects their daily lives. So that's something he really wants to make clear moving forward in the future with this. Also, he said if Prop Q is not to pass, these cuts are going to be happening soon. He told me in the next 2 to 4 weeks we could start seeing some of these cuts. So it's going to be some big impacts right away if indeed this Prop Q does not pass tonight. So that's something we're going to be watching too as moving forward with how the budget all plays out as well. Ashley?
Malia, thank you. Those numbers still continuing to roll in tonight, which means we are continuing to keep an eye on all of it. We'll have another update for you on the election results tonight. KVUE News at 10. For now, I'm KVUE's Ashley Goudeau. We'll see you on the news.